When you think about the Library of Alexandria, you probably picture a catastrophic fire, a bonfire of all the world's ancient wisdom, lost in a single, tragic night. It's an incredibly powerful image, but it's mostly wrong. The real story is far more complex, and frankly, far more terrifying. What was lost wasn't just a library. It was the ancient world's first, and perhaps greatest, research institute. And its slow, quiet death tells us something profound about how knowledge, and even civilization itself, can simply fade away. Let's travel back to the 3rd century BC, in the bustling, cosmopolitan city of Alexandria, Egypt. A revolutionary idea takes root. The ruling Ptolemaic dynasty wants to build something unprecedented, a repository for all of the world's knowledge. This wasn't just about collecting books. It was about creating a global hub for intellectual pursuit. Imagine a place that's part university, part national library, and part think tank. Scholars from across the known world were invited to live there, full-time, with their expenses covered. Their job? To read, debate, translate, and most importantly, create new knowledge. The drive to collect was aggressive. Agents were dispatched to buy scrolls from every corner of the Mediterranean. Ships docking in Alexandria's harbor were searched, and any books found on board were seized. The originals were kept for the library, and a fresh copy was made and returned to the owner. This place was a living, breathing organism of thought. It was where the Old Testament was first translated from Hebrew into Greek. It was where literary criticism was born, where scholars standardized texts from Homer and Plato, creating the versions we still study today. This wasn't a dusty warehouse for forgotten scrolls. It was the engine room of the ancient intellectual world. The goal wasn't just storage, it was active, relentless research. So, what exactly was on those shelves? What knowledge did they hold? We can't know for sure, but ancient writers give us tantalizing clues. They describe a treasure trove of texts on astronomy, mathematics, medicine, geography, and engineering. Think about this. Long before Columbus, a scholar at the library named Eratosthenes calculated the circumference of the Earth, and he was astonishingly accurate, off by less than 2%. How? By using simple observation, geometry, and pure intellect. He noticed that on the summer solstice, the sun was directly overhead in one city, but cast a shadow in Alexandria. From that shadow, he figured out the whole planet. Then there was Hero of Alexandria, an inventor who lived a few centuries later, but was likely drawing on the library's vast knowledge. He created the world's first steam engine, a device called an eolipile. He built automated temple doors that opened with fire and water, designed vending machines that dispensed holy water, and wrote extensive manuals on mechanics and automatons. We also know of Ctesibius, who invented the water clock and a powerful water pump used by fire brigades. These weren't just theoretical ideas or myths. These were documented technologies, real machines built over 2,000 years ago. The library held the blueprints, the research papers, and the scientific treatises that made it all possible. It was a golden age of discovery, and the library was its epicenter. So, if it was so incredible, what happened? Where did it all go? This is the biggest misconception. There wasn't one single cataclysmic fire that destroyed everything. The library didn't burn down, it faded away. Its decline was a slow, painful process that stretched over centuries. It was a death by 1,000 cuts. It started with political instability. When Roman influence grew in Egypt, the library's royal patronage weakened. Budgets were slashed. Foreign scholars were expelled during periods of civil unrest. The vibrant, international community that had fueled its genius began to fracture. Then came the ideological shifts. The rise of religious dogmatism created an environment hostile to the library's spirit of open, rational inquiry. Certain types of knowledge were deemed heretical or useless. The focus shifted from discovery to preservation of approved texts. The critical blow wasn't a flame, but neglect. The scrolls themselves were fragile, made of papyrus. Without a dedicated army of scribes constantly copying and recopying them, they would naturally decay and turn to dust. As funding dried up and the intellectual climate soured, the copying stopped. Knowledge, without active transmission, dies. Perhaps the most devastating loss of all wasn't the scrolls themselves, but the library's catalogue, the Pine. Created by the poet Telemachus, this was a meticulously organized, 120-volume bibliography of every text in the library. It listed authors, titles, and summaries. It was the ancient world's Google, a map to everything they knew. When the catalogue was lost, We didn't just lose the books, we lost the memory that the books had ever existed. It was like deleting not just the files, but the entire hard drive directory. The consequences of this slow decay were profound. For centuries, humanity had to reinvent knowledge that had already been discovered. Think about germ theory. Long before Pasteur, ancient Roman writers, who likely had access to Alexandrian medical texts, wrote about minute creatures invisible to the eye that could cause disease. That knowledge vanished. It took us another 1,500 years to get back to that same point. Think of Hero's steam engine. It was seen as a novelty, a toy. The Industrial Revolution, powered by steam, might have started in Roman times if that knowledge had been built upon instead of forgotten. The work of astronomers like Aristarchus, who proposed a heliocentric model of the solar system that the Earth revolves around the Sun, was lost. His ideas were dismissed, and for the next 1,700 years, humanity believed the Earth was the center of the universe until Copernicus had to rediscover the truth all over again. We didn't get smarter over those millennia. In many ways, we were just catching up. We were climbing a mountain of knowledge that our ancestors had already summited, but the path they took had been completely erased. The real tragedy of the Library of Alexandria isn't a story of fire and smoke. It's a story of silence. The greatest loss wasn't what was burned, but what was never copied, what was deemed unimportant, what was allowed to crumble into dust, unread and unremembered. We lost not just answers, but the questions themselves. We lost the knowledge that there was more to know. It's a chilling reminder that civilization isn't a constant, upward march. It's fragile. Knowledge is a flame that needs to be actively tended. If we stop feeding it, if we stop valuing it, if we stop passing it on, it doesn't just stop growing, it goes out. The library's silent shelves are a warning from history. The most advanced civilization is the one that remembers what it knows. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, consider subscribing and joining our community of history lovers. See you in the next video.